We've started recording. All right. Thank you everyone so much for being here for Jam of Thai Fresh's presentation on soy-free miso and incorporating umami flavors into vegan ice cream. My name is Nora Shavanik, and I am the Deputy Director at Texas Farmers Market, and I am so excited that everyone's here and joining us for the 8th annual celebration of the Austin Fermentation Festival, even though it looks a little different this year. For you, yeah, a little different, but someday we'll be back in person. The event is hosted by Texas Farmers Market, and we are a nonprofit centered around hosting and educating Central Texas producers and consumers to grow a sustainable food system. We love having you all out here tonight, and we hope that you will come out and see us in person at the markets. We run Texas Farmers Market at Lakeline on Saturdays from 9 to 1, and Texas Farmers Market at Miller on Sundays from 10 to 2. Just a little housekeeping for the event tonight. Jam is going to present until around 8 o'clock or so, and then she'll be taking audience questions afterwards until about 8:30. During the talk, your audio and video is going to be muted, and so if you have questions and you would like to ask Jam over audio, just drop your name in the chat box, and I'll put you in a queue for audience questions at the end, and I will unmute you when it's your turn to speak. If you have a question, but if you don't want to turn on your audio and video, that's totally fine too. Just drop your question into the chat box, and during the Q&A, I'll select a few to ask Jam as well. Ooh.
Wait, let me leave this one. Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No worries.
I'm gonna leave it. I was trying to get in to type stuff, but I'm just gonna reach my hand over to type on there when I need to.
That's great. Everyone's used to technical difficulties.
I know.
So
like,
that's why we have everyone muted.
Last minute decision, so it wasn't working.
Okay. One more little thing. Don't forget that in addition to the workshops this year, we're also hosting an amazing online silent auction. Items have been donated from wonderful local businesses and fermentation festival favorites, including places like William Chris Vineyard, Bunkhouse Hotels, Emmer and Rye, and a lot more great stuff. Bidding on the items is going to be fully virtual through the website 32 Auctions. You have to sign up for an account to participate. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And bidding is going to run until November 1st at 9 p.m. and auction items can be picked up at our markets, or if we have out-of-towners, they can be shipped. We have to pay some additional shipping costs. We encourage everyone to bid early and often. Proceeds from the silent auction and any donations are benefiting the Texas Farmers Market and our Ag Producer Support Fund, which allows us to support farmers, ranchers, and all producer vendors during times of crisis like Winter Storm Uri, where we gave out over $20,000 of immediate assistance to supporting our farmers. And it also provides funding for our scholarship for new BIPOC farmers joining the markets. So please bid generously. Like I said, the link to both donate to this or to the bid on the silent auction I'm going to drop it in the chat. So without further ado, now on to our workshop. Just a little background on Jam. Jam started cooking alongside her grandmother and her mom when she was 5. She started teaching Thai cooking classes, sharing her family recipes in 2004, and opened Thai Fresh in South Austin in 2008. I personally am a really big fan of the massaman curry and the spicy basil fried rice. I encourage people to check out those dishes. They're my favorites. She also started making coconut milk-based ice cream for the restaurant in 2010 and opened an ice cream shop, Goji Ice Cream, in October 2020. Without further ado, I'm going to turn off my video and pass it over to Jam.
All right. Thank you, Nora. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me today. I am excited to be back to a different version of the Fermentation Festival, and I'm sure we'll be back face-to-face soon, as Nora mentioned. So today, I'm doing something that kind of out of my expertise, I would say. This is not really what I normally do. Making miso is obviously is the ingredient of a Japanese culture, and but I have noticed that more and more people are not really a big fan of soy, or they have found out that they are sensitive to soy or they're allergic to soy. So people have been requesting even soy-based ice cream, which we don't make. We make coconut milk-based ice cream. So, or even like serving a latte, people just stay away from soy, and we'll get soy milk, and then nobody order. Then we have to actually stop carrying soy milk altogether because nobody really want it. So, and then I started seeing miso in the in the market that is not soy based. So I started to grab, for example, these guys at Miso Master, a very good miso company. Is like it's kind of flip over there, like the camera flipped it. But this is a chickpea based miso. So I thought that it would be kind of fun to make miso from other beans. So I started researching and found that you can actually make it from any beans out there, whatever you can think of, and then you can try it. And then, although you will have to wait about 6 months to find out if that is your favorite miso, but it's kind of fun to get your hands into it and try to see if it tastes good, and if it's and plus it is homemade, so you make it yourself, put in the pantry, check it every month or so, and then forget about it most of the time. And then you open it up, and miso is actually one of my favorite ingredients. I always say to people, I have discovered miso like a few years ago, and have been fascinated by it from like using it for stir fry. It is very, very similar to a Thai ingredient, which is fermented soybean. So miso is pretty much just fermented soybean, but it's fermented differently because the one that we use in Thai cooking is fermented and then not really mashed, but stay kind of whole somewhat. So they kind of chop it up a little bit, but mainly it actually staying whole. And we use that in a lot of recipes. So miso is just another version of fermented soybean. What they both bring to the table is that really, like umami flavor. So to me, like people always ask me, like, what is umami? What do you believe in? If it's the flavor, what is it? So to me, right, umami is more of a sensation. Yeah, this is why. So there are flavors out there like salty, spicy, sour, right, bitter, and sweet. So these are the 5 flavors that we use a lot in cooking. And when people eat all these 5 flavors, right? So here is how umami comes. Is when you eat 5 flavors. So when you eat all the 5 flavors together or in the same meal from different dishes or in one single dish, you eat it, and then your taste buds are stimulated, and then it's like kind of open up, and then you can taste more food. And when these 5 flavors combine or come together, it make you a little bit more satisfied. It's like a more like a satisfaction, the happiness of eating, because you are super stimulated from all of the flavors in your mouth that bursting there. So that's when umami happen, is when they all come together, right? Umami also happen when you actually eat fermented product, right? From soy sauce, fish sauce, miso, kombucha, and kimchi, another like a few examples out there. So when you eat that, there is like a substance in the fermented product that actually stimulate your taste buds to open and receiving the flavor. You start salivating, and I can't talk about it without salivating. Pretty much every time I talk about it, I'm like, now my mouth is like saturated, and then I start to get umami just by thinking about umami. All right, so miso is one of them, and then I do shop at farmers market, and then I come across a lot of time when it's in season. It's actually out of season now, so my is not made with the local black eyed peas, but you find local black eyed peas quite a bit at the farmers market when it's in season. Or you will find like azuki beans, which is like Japanese red beans, so you can use those as well. But when out of season, you can always go grab, of course, dry beans. So today I'm making it with black eyed peas that I got from our vendor that make tempeh for us. It's Orale Food, and then they make tempeh with black eyed peas. So I got some black eyed peas from them. So let's see what are the ingredients. It is so simple. It can't even be simpler than this. This is like 4 or 5 ingredients to make miso. So I started out with dry beans. I don't have any more dry beans. I just kind of forgot, and I soaked them all and processed them all. But what you do is you just soak dry beans for 18 hours. So you just let it soak in water, room temperature, just sit it out and soak it for 18 hours. And then you just drain it, wash it off, and then you just cook the beans. So either cook it on the stove, which would take a couple hours, or I did it in my pressure cooker. It took me 5 minutes. Well, another 10 minutes for the pressure cooker to pressure to get up to the temperature. But then after that, it's take 5 minutes, right? So after you do that, then you just like blend it. So I just put it in a food processor or blender. You can use a handheld blender and blend it. If it's hard to blend, you can add a little bit of the bean water in there. So the consistency is there. What's important is that in order to, for making miso, what you have to do is that this bean has to still be hot. So you've got to get everything else ready, and then you finish the beans and then blend it. And while the bean is still hot, that's when you're going to be adding other ingredients in it. So while you're getting the beans ready on the side, so let's look at other ingredients real quick. So this what we call goji rice. I'm going to get it close to the camera. You can see it. It's like look like a puff rice. So what this is it's a steamed rice. So it's a Japanese ingredient. So it's a steamed rice that has been inoculated with fermentation culture, right? So you can see, like, you can actually, I don't know if you can see it, but if you buy it, they're very easy to find. Asahi grocery store up on Burnett Road, or you can buy them online. But I don't know if you can see. I'm gonna get it as close as possible. You can see like that it looks like this, like spores that holding this together, right? So it's like a little bit of that. It's hard to see on the screen, but so this rice is almost like it's a puff rice with some a little bit of like hairy stuff on it. So that's what we're gonna be using to ferment our miso. This is how we're gonna start it. A lot of time you're also gonna come across a recipe that asks for just a little bit, maybe a tablespoon of like already made miso to get it started a little bit. I guess it's just like to ensure that it's gonna start for sure. So you add a little bit of culture, just like when you make kombucha, you have to add a starter into it to get it started. So it's the same idea, but you don't have to. You can just start it without the miso in there. And then of course some salt there, and then a little bit of the bean water if you need it. If you feel like the consistency is not right, you can always add the bean water into it to make it. All right, so this is somewhat warm. It's not hot anymore. It's been sitting here for just a little bit, but I'm just going to show you what I do. So basically, if you have a scale is always handy. Grams is always the most accurate way to measure anything. So having a scale in the kitchen is always a good way to do it. So you're going to get the beans ready. So it's all mushed up like that, right? So you're going to set it on the side. So what you're going to prepare the goji rice, and then you're going to prepare with the salt. So usually it is, I'm gonna just glance at the recipe real quick. So usually it's about 1 part of the dry beans weight. So you weigh the beans when it's dry before you cook it. So usually 200 grams of beans, and then 420 grams of goji rice, and then 130 grams of salt. So I'm doing it in half today, right? So I'm gonna do this already measure out. So this is 225 grams of goji rice. I'm gonna turn the scale on. I'm gonna throw that in there, and I'm gonna add. So I'm doing half the batch today. So I'm doing 225 grams of the goji rice, and then 65 grams of salt. So I've got salt in here. I tear it, and then I'm gonna just like put it in until it reaches 65 grams. Right? It's so easy. I was like surprised how easy it was to make it. I'm gonna go slow because otherwise I'll put too much salt in it. All right, so that's about 65 grams there. So you got right here goji rice and salt together, right? You're just gonna mix it. It's gonna break up because there are some of the goji rice that is still kind of in clumps in balls. So you kind of mix it in so that the salt is all mixed in. My miso, it's not ready, but I'm gonna show you what it looks like. It's been sitting for 2 months. I lucked out. I didn't get any molds on it. Sometimes they say when you go and look at it after a week or 2, you see mold growing. I didn't see any, but if you happen to capture any, then you can just scrape it off and then stir the mixture. I haven't seen any mold. Every time I look every 2 weeks or so. So I'm going to mix in the goji rice and the salt. So I'm trying to break all of that clumps into, so that they're separated into grain of rice like that. All right, so you can see that said no more clumps. See, like earlier there was a bunch of clumps, and then we're gonna mix it so that the salt and the rice is all mixed in. Then you're gonna add this in, assuming that this is actually, look at all this like spores coming out. So this is a black eyed pea. We're using African variety that has more iron in it. All right, so we're gonna put that in, right? Then you're gonna mix it. The best way that you're just gonna mix it is with your hand. So I've got this gloves right here, so I don't have to walk away and wash my hand later. So I'm gonna just actually get in, right, with my hand, and then just kind of mix it like that. So just kind of mix that in. It's awesome. I was so happy that it's so easy to make. It does take time. Good thing comes to those who wait. So I can't wait to be able to use it. Yeah, when I got a call from Nora to do this, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I like miso ice cream. Can I show that? And it's like, well, let's just start from the product itself that is fermented, which is miso. So I looked it up and I was like, it's just not hard at all. I can totally master this. All right, so this is what it looks like after it's all mixed in, right? It's just like a little clump together with the rice, and you can see it. I'm gonna grab another glove to put it on. So what you do is you just kind of roll them into balls, right? Just I don't know, a size of kind of your fist like that. So you just roll them into balls like that. And it has become really, really popular. I was doing even deeper research, who make them, how they make them. And I mean, like, there are so many restaurants like in New York, in Atlanta, that start to make their own miso. They sell them or they incorporate into their food. Amazing. Miso dressing is one of my favorite as well. And it's so easy. It's just like miso paste, rice wine vinegar, a little bit of salt, and the rice wine vinegar already a little bit sweet, but it's non-sweetened, but it is already has a little bit of sweetness to it, you know. And then that's it. Miso is already salty, so you don't need really anything else. That's it. And I just love that dressing so much. All right, so this kind of into this bowl, I'm gonna do one more of these. Okay, let's do one more. And we're gonna put it in a glass jar that you already washed and sanitized. Make sure that it's clean. I'm gonna sit this on the side. So I'm gonna grab my jar right here. So you're gonna put that in and then start like stacking them, but you kind of wanna make sure that it's stacked down. So I think like by like making into balls, just kind of make it a little bit tighter, and then you make sure that it's like kind of there's no like space in between, and then that ensure that. And plus, like when you press the ball in, it's just a little bit easier to fit that into the little hole instead of just like grab the whole mixture, right? So you just kind of put it in there and stack it in like that. So pretty easy. This is almost done. And then you wait, right? So just like that. A little bit like maybe another ball would be just right. So you don't want it to be super full to the very tip top or anything. So I've got one more right here. I'm gonna press that in. And then there are many different way that people recommend. You can either like, you know, get a bag of salt and put it on top to weigh it down, or some recipe say that you don't have to. You just make sure you either have cheesecloth or towels. I didn't have any cheesecloth, so I was just using towel that was not, you know, it's like super thick or anything, like a little kitchen towel. And then I just got this guy like that, right? And then I just like cover, and then I just like loosely, like this is like a rubber band, and do that. So, I mean, online information, it's just so rich right now that you can kind of try different way. You can try one with the salt, the weights on top, and one without, and then see how it turned out. So far, mine looks really good. So I'm gonna show you what I've got. I've got 2 containers, 2 jars. If you look at it, I'm gonna put it up, and I've been stirring it too. So you like in the beginning, the first month and a half, 6 weeks, you're supposed to stir it every week, so that way it doesn't grow anymore. Every time I went into that, sometimes I forgot and I leave it for 2 weeks. I haven't seen anything, but you can see the consistency of that. The rice start to kind of, you know, like break down just a little bit more. I'm going to show you side by side. You can see that. See, this is the one that's been 2 months, and this is just today. So you can see that the rice start to kind of break down just a little bit more. And it is pretty salty. That is quite a lot of salt in there, but fermenting, right? So you need that salt to preserve it. And then you just kind of stir it. Some recipes said after 3 months, it might be good to taste it. And then 6 months, sometimes they leave it for a year. It seems like up to 2 years, sometimes miso, the process of making miso, which is the same as fish sauce. So fish sauce could take from 6 to 24 months. So like it's a very long range. I think the longer that you ferment, it's also make it even richer, more umami taste. But of course, you have to wait a little bit longer, and the taste is very, very pungent. If you're not used to it, sometimes people's like, well, I'm not. But you never really have, like, you never really eat miso. It's just like that. So you like kind of dilute it in something, in water, in dressing, you know, like making ice cream. That's I'm gonna be making. And we actually made this ice cream for Fermentation Festival 3 years ago, and it was selling like hotcakes. And we actually continued to sell it at the restaurant, and it was very, very popular. And I think once my miso is done and ready, I'm going to try to make ice cream with my miso and see how it goes. And I might actually start another batch in a couple of days, just so that I have a stack of miso. So I will be the miso master soon. All right, because my miso is not ready, right? So I've grabbed this guy, the one I showed you earlier. So this is chickpea miso. That's why it's white, because the chickpea is white or lighter in color. All right, I'm gonna set this aside. So we're gonna be making ice cream. So we have been making coconut milk based ice cream since 2010 for a while. And then last year, actually, tomorrow is our anniversary. So tomorrow is free scoop of ice cream at Goji on Holly Street for everyone. No purchase necessary. So come by and then get some ice cream. We won't have the miso ice cream there yet, but we have many other things there. All right, so we're gonna be looking at how we can incorporate miso or actually any ingredients into making the ice cream. There's not very much to actually making ice cream. As long as you know what the important thing is, then you're good to go. And you can just turn any ingredient, like from like peaches, strawberry, miso, you can turn sweet potato, you can turn prickly pear, you can turn anything into ice cream as long as you get the sugar content to where it's supposed to be, right? All right, so thank you for the birthday wish for the Goji ice cream. Yeah, I'm so excited. I haven't actually, you are the first people to actually know about this free scoop. I haven't advertised it. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. So I'm just like so afraid that there'll be too many people. Like I'm just gonna do it on the day off, and then we'll go from there. All right, so making ice cream. So I actually went to take ice cream class in Wisconsin, of all the places, in January of 2019 or 20, actually 2020, the year that the pandemic actually started. I went in January to Wisconsin and took a class at University of Wisconsin. It was a 7-day seminar, 8 hours. So I was like making ice cream for like 40 hours of that whole week. That was so much fun. I learned so much, and I have applied that to my own ice cream making. All right, so coconut milk based ice cream. So I normally just use coconut milk. I don't really use coconut cream, even though a lot of time you will see recipe calling for all milk and cream, because the coconut milk that actually that are sold in the can in the US, they are very, very creamy. The fat content is about, I think, 17% also, and that's like plenty of fat to actually make your ice cream creamy. So you don't have to actually use coconut cream, so use coconut milk. So this is coconut milk. So I'm gonna actually get it started. So this is 2 cans of 14-ounce coconut milk. And we'll be sending the recipe to you guys once the class is over, both for miso and for the coconut milk ice cream. So what I do is I boil my coconut cream, or coconut milk rather. I boil it. Boiling coconut milk, we don't do that with milk, right? So, but when I found that making coconut milk based ice cream, the consistency is so much better, and then it takes care of that coconut flavor to not be super pungent if you boil it first. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat on, right? So we're gonna wait for that to come to a boil. But before while it is doing that, we're gonna talk a little bit about other ingredients. So there's not very many ingredients. It's just the base is your fat and your liquid, right? And then your sugar, right? I usually put a little bit of salt. Since we're making miso ice cream, I'm not gonna do any salt. I'm just gonna skip it. Salt actually makes the sweeter for some reason. It just make it more complex. You just add another flavor, but you don't taste it because it's so little bit. And normally for 2 cans of coconut milk, I normally would add about, a half teaspoon or so also, or sometimes a quarter teaspoon, depending on what I'm making. So this is the base. So the important thing about making ice cream is that ice cream is 25% sugar. I know it sounds like, is that what I'm eating? Yes, that is what you're eating. We always say in moderation is always okay. You don't eat it every day, but when you eat it, you need it to be sweet. And that is why a lot of time people are like, oh, how is my homemade ice cream? Very, very hard. I think a lot of time homemade ice cream, like home cook normally try to not put as much sugar in. And then when there's not enough sugar, the ice cream freeze like rock. Can you actually do it? Can you just like make that sugar content a little bit less than 25%? Of course you can. It's going to be less creamy, and then it's going to be really hard. So when you bring it out of the freezer, after you freeze it, then you have to sit it on the counter and let it thaw a little bit, 5 minutes before you can actually eat it. It will still be very enjoyable. I have tried 22 and the creaminess didn't go up. 23 maybe, the creaminess still just stay. Anything less than 23%, the creaminess start to actually get a little bit icier. But if you don't mind that, you can also always do that. All right, so one very, very good tool in making ice cream so that you can actually measure the amount of sugar. I mean, the recipe I'm giving you is already measure out that 2 cans of coconut milk with 1 3/4 cup of sugar. That is 25%. But normally you have to weigh it out. So you can take this recipe and then take this as a 25%. But as I was mentioning earlier, when you're adding other ingredients, right? Like be it peach or strawberry. So strawberry usually 13% sugar. Peach is about the same, 13 to 14% sugar. Banana is sometimes, when it's really ripe, it is 23% sugar, right? So you have to actually look at the sugar content on the thing that you're adding onto your ice cream. So you start with a base. Your base is 25%, but as soon as you add other ingredients into it, it becomes, right, not 25% anymore, because other ingredients actually take away that sugar content in it. So you have to add a little bit more sugar into that to make it 25%. This is a very good tool. I mean, you don't need it, but it's not very expensive. It's like $16. You can order it online. It is called refractometer. I'm gonna type it in. So I'm gonna kind of be reaching over. Oh, I can't do that. I will do that in just a minute. Maybe I'm gonna put that in the recipe for you guys. So what this does is that it will tell you how much sugar content. So it's actually great for making, like, if you want to ferment your own wine, making your own beer. This will tell you how much sugar left in your, in your product, and then should you ferment longer or should you take it out, right? So this is kind of, and it's not expensive. So if you are really, really keen on making ice cream at home, this comes in handy, I must say it. And I'm going to show you how to use that in just a second. So my coconut milk is boiling. So I'm going to go ahead and add, this is a 1/4 cup size. So I'm going to have to do 6 of these to make actually 7. A lot. All right, so that's that. So that's what ice cream is. It's sweet. And then you can use, you can use coconut sugar, and coconut sugar usually has the same amount of sweetness as far as, like, I've done it with palm sugar. I've done it with date sugar. And that's why a lot of time the, artificial sugar doesn't quite work, because it is not sugar and it's not sweet. So that's why a lot of time also when you purchase sugar-free ice cream, that's why it is hard as well. And then they have to add stabilizer like guar gum and stuff like that to make it creamy, because that's how it is. Because when you take away the most important thing in ice cream, 2 most important things, there's fat, right? If you have that, and then sugar. And sometimes they strip the fat as well. So it's really hard to make low fat, no sugar ice cream. All right, so this is done. So all my mixture is already, all my sugar is already dissolved. So I'm gonna let it be like that. Okay, so miso is a fermented product. So there is life culture in this, guys. So normally, thank you, that is refractometer. That's right, I just saw it. You don't, so to actually benefit from it fully, you don't want to cook it. So this is already off. So best if you cool it off even a little bit more. But I've been stirring it and I didn't boil all the way. You could have boiled all the way. Coconut milk can be boiled and it won't curdle like regular milk. So I'm gonna stir it so it's not boiling, so it's not cooking my miso. So that way the life culture is still there. All right, I'm actually going to test this to see if the recipe actually works. I'm gonna test it. I am hoping I am correct. So I'm gonna, so what you do is you just open this thing up. See this flap, open it up. You kind of put this on there and you make sure that you buy refractometer. It is for sugar, because I think they make them for different things. And then you close it down like that, and you kind of look into it. And then the blue line would come up to 25%. So number 25, which means your base is 25%. All right. All right, so that looks good. All you do now is just put miso in it. Since I'm not putting that much miso, I don't think I'm even gonna have to make this even sweeter, because as I say, 23% would work too. So usually, you know, most recipe, if you look up online, it will just say 2 tablespoons of miso. So I'm gonna do 1 there. And you taste it, right? It's not too much of this, but if you make fruit ice cream like peach, strawberry or whatnot, you would need to add a little bit more sugar to balance it out. So that way it will stay at 25%. I'll send you the recipe. I think this might have be a little bit more than 25. If you have my cookbook, that recipe is actually 25%. All right, so I'm just stirring that miso paste into here. And this is also the reason I like red miso so much, because red miso actually make the ice cream color red, right? But a lot of red miso in the market, at the store, or most of the brand, is still made from soy. It just has more salt content and it's actually fermented longer. That's why it is red. So white miso is also soy based, but less salt and less time. All right, I'm gonna mix it in. It's kind of harder to mix. I have to use the spoon to help it. I'm gonna show you the mixture in just a second. It's kind of white-ish because the paste is pretty white. I do love miso, so sometimes I actually add a little bit more than just that. But let's taste it, right? So the rule of thumb is you can't take it out. You can always add more. So less is more. All right. I want to make sure that it's all blended there. I think the best way to do it, I think I like skip the step. Like if you just take a little bit of base into a smaller bowl and make sure to mash that miso, or probably better if you use like a whisk. All right, so that looks pretty good. I think I've got all the mash, all the miso little clumps to be mashed out. So I'm gonna actually taste it. And that's it. So it's miso, coconut milk, and then sugar. I think I like it. I think I don't need any more. I thought I liked more than that, but I don't. So that's what it is. So it doesn't really look like anything. So that's pretty much like, you know, the base of that. And then what you do is you just cool it off, and then churn it in your ice cream maker, whatever that you're using, from Cuisinart to like the one that you have a little insert that you have to freeze it first overnight and then use it. I have used one of these brands. If you are serious and want to make ice cream super creamy, like more like professional style, think the brand, if I'm not mistaken, is called Muso. I think that's how you say it, Musso, I think. It's like a 2-quart size, and it's got a compressor there. So, and then so it's cold, so it's like actually churn it, and you don't have to freeze the container before you do that. Oh man, this is so good. It made me just want to like make stir fry and all that stuff now. And then so since you are, so there's a formula. How am I gonna get each of the thing into 25%? There's a formula there. I can just send it into there as well, just to calculate into the grams, right? Like how much more sugar you need. But if you have the good base, then you know that your base is already 25%, right? Then whatever you're adding into your base after you stir it up, you can just like use it, and you just like measure it out, and then look, you're like, oh, it adds 22%. Let me add another, 2 tablespoons of sugar and see if that brings that to 25%. And then you write it down. Then you have your recipe written down. But for us, because we make in such a big quantity, like we weigh everything, and then we just like weigh the peaches, and then we look into it. It's like, oh, peach is 13%. It's 500 grams. And in order to make it 25%, we need this many grams of sugar. So that's the formula. But for homemade, that's what I do. When I do it like in a small batch, I just gauge it. I was like, let me add 2 tablespoons and see how many percent I can bring that sugar level up. Okay, 2 tablespoons bring 3 more percent. If I need 3 more, I add 2 more tablespoons, right? Start slow. And then after that, you get a hang of it, and you know, like, okay, I got it. And then I got so good at some point that I just add it, and then I just look at it, and it's exactly 25, like almost every time. So once you get used to it, you're gonna get a hang of it. Like you taste thing, and you're like, okay, this is however many percent, and you try it. I'm gonna just kind of do that one more time. I don't think it's gonna change very much. It's remained the same. So it doesn't like barely change it, because it was not that much miso. It was like 4 cups of liquid, 1.5 cup of sugar, and then just 2 tablespoons of miso. So that miso doesn't really affect the sweetness of this mixture. So there you go. So there you have it. Then you can just churn it, and then you got coconut milk based ice cream. I haven't really worked with any other milk. I've done it with milk and cream. And then here's a trick to turning anything into vegan ice cream. So you look at the recipe. The recipe most of the time, right? Either call for whole milk plus cream, or just whole milk. Some recipe has egg in it. So you have to figure out how much that egg yolk is. So let's say they call for 5 egg yolks. So 5 egg yolks come to maybe a third of a cup, or like a half cup. I'm not quite sure. I'm sure there's something on Google that will tell you how many egg yolks in how many cups. Then you replace everything with the coconut milk. So if it's calling for 4 cups of milk, then you put 4 cups of coconut milk. It calls for another cup of cream, then you add another cup of coconut milk. No need to use coconut cream. You can just use coconut milk. And then the egg yolks, if it calls for, then you just add that, replace that with coconut milk as well. That is your liquid. And then whatever else, the same. So put the same amount of sugar as the recipe called for, the same amount of fruit or nuts or whatever, and then follow exactly the same. That's how I actually started. I started from grabbing just a regular ice cream book, and then turn everything into coconut milk based ice cream, and it works. All of them work. I have not had one that it didn't work out. All right, so that is how you go from making miso right here into making miso ice cream. All right, so that is pretty much super easy. So I guess we could get back to our question and answer, Nora. What do you think?
Yes, if anybody has any, if you'd like to ask a question, just drop your name into the chat, and then we can unmute you if you have a question about making miso, making ice cream, other Thai fresh existential questions. Well, I'll kick off. I'll ask a first question. So, Jam, you were talking about when you added the miso, one of the things about live cultures and fermentation is that you don't want to heat it up because it can kill off some of the good bacteria that you're hoping to get. Have you experimented with incorporating the miso at like different temperatures to make sure that, you know, if you want that health benefit, or do you really feel like you need to add it when the coconut milk is hot and it won't incorporate otherwise?
Right. I think it would, because I have add miso into like vinegar, right? So that is like pretty much room temperature, and I stir it, and it's like it actually dissolves super easily. I just, as long as you have like a small bowl and you put miso in it, and then you just whisk it until it's incorporated, and it's very easy to incorporate at room temperature. So if I were not in a hurry, I would have probably cooled off this a little bit more, and then just take some of it, like not into a big, because it's so much harder to do it when you have like so much liquid and a little bit of miso. So I would totally just take a little bit of liquid in there and take miso and then whisk it first and then add it to the base and then churn it. Yeah, this has like 3 ingredients. It's crazy. Ice cream doesn't have to be complicated. Yeah. And I have also cooked it because I just like the flavor of miso. So I've cooked it. So when you eat miso soup, that's also cooked. And miso soup, it's just miso and water. That's all there is. It's amazing how good it tastes, because when you start off with a good, like, very strong umami taste product, you don't need very much. I drop it in my stir fry like all the time. I would just take like saute some garlic, put miso in as a base, and I toss in with pasta, and it's good. You don't even need any meat. It's amazing. So yeah, to answer that, like, yeah, any temperature would dissolve the miso pretty easily, I would say.
Wonderful. Well, if nobody else has any questions, because Jam did such a great job explaining how to make miso and how to make ice cream, then let's see, I'll start my video just for a moment. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Like Jam said, we're going to send out the recipes for the miso and the ice cream so you can make this at home. And thank you so much to Jam for taking the time to teach us all this wonderful, delicious new skill.
Yeah, I think I saw one question.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Yes, someone did ask a question.
Right. So if you don't want to spend hundreds on ice cream maker, even like the Cuisinart one is not. I swear that I've seen it less than $100. I might be wrong, but I swear that I saw it multiple times online. So you can check that out. Or another way to make ice cream, believe it or not, I have tried it and it works somewhat. It's not perfect, and there are a few other options online. But what I did is, like, I take the ice cream base, put it in the freezer, and let it freeze for maybe an hour. Bring it out, stir it to break up the ice. Like the recent ice cream is so creamy because it is freezing as it is moving, right? So if you take this ice cream base, put it in the freezer, it'll just freeze solid, rock hard, right? Same base, same ingredient and everything. You churn it, it becomes creamy, because you have to constantly break up that ice that actually form that make it rock hard. So you just freeze it for an hour, hour and a half, bring it out, stir, put it back in. So that's like churning, you're hand churning it. And then you put it back in, and then 1 other hour, bring it out, and then stir it again. You could do that. And I have also seen, like, a lot of times it's like banana is a good base for a lot of ice cream. So you could use banana and cashew, put a little bit of water in there, and then you can get, without having to go through all that, like frozen banana. But yeah, so that's one way. If you have a base like this, that's one way you can try it. Just like freeze it and then stir every hour until you feel like, okay, this is creamy enough, and just let it finish up freezing in the freezer. Yeah. What else we got? Right. So yeah, so that's also answer that question too. Yeah. So it could be pretty reasonable. Just, then it doesn't come with bells and whistles. Then you have to just like freeze the container overnight until it's fully frozen solid, and then you can use it. So you just have to plan ahead. That's all. Anyone else have any other questions? I am happy to. You can always. I always say, I tell everyone, whatever class or whatever like moment that I teach a workshop or cooking class or whatnot, it's that I love sharing. So I don't mind sharing my knowledge, as knowledge is only good if it's shared, right? So I am a recipe sharer. So anytime you want any recipe, you can just email me. It's like, I saw you in the fermentation festival presentation, a workshop. I would like to get this recipe. Can you send it to me? I'll be happy to. Even Thai food recipe or anything that you think I will know the recipe of, I'll be happy to send it to you. You don't have to even take my class. I love sharing. So I always want to spread this knowledge. The wider this knowledge is spread, the better. So that's my motto.
Or you can pick up the beautiful Thai Fresh cookbook that came
You
out
are right on
last
that one
year.
too.
Yes. All right. Any last questions? Any last questions in the chat? Okay. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. Thank you to Jam. Enjoy making your miso and your ice cream.
Yeah, enjoy it. So any question later, that's fine. You can email us, email me. You can go to the website and then just send us a message. I will be happy to answer. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, you guys.